said, I want to shift gears and bring in Nomiki Konst. She is a friend of the show. Every Wednesday, we talk about solidarity, how allies should be working together across issues. And while every ally does not have the same priority list, all of us should find a way to work together for our common cause. Good morning, Nomiki. How are you this
morning? I am wonderful. How are you, Ben?
I am great. Thank you so much for joining us as always. And later on today, I will be with you over there on your channel. I want to start honestly with COVID because, you know, it's almost as if we're living in a movie and the plot line is a 2-bit on the nose. And the people who are in charge, I feel like are somewhat the antagonist of our story because, well, they're certainly not making this pandemic go away anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, what's so odd about this move, Governor Kathy Hochul in New York announced that she's going to be lifting the mask mandates when, she's been in office for 5 months since Governor Cuomo was forced to step down. She really was aggressive, and it was quite refreshing to see how she really championed safety in COVID. She instilled the mask mandates when the rates were pretty low again. As we were hearing about Delta in Europe, she put those mask mandates in before pretty much anybody else did. And of course, same thing with Omicron. Now, there's vaccine mandates where you have to be vaccinated at least 2 times before you eat inside in New York. So there are other provisions, but I think what's just so bizarre about this is it happens so rapidly. I understand that the rates are going down significantly. And, for the most part, from what we understand, the people who are being hospitalized and who are dying are those who refuse to get vaccinated. So I'm wondering if there's just this executive decision at this point to say, or if there's some sort of data science that says there's a point where you just can't convince certain people to be vaccinated when they're refusing at this point in the pandemic. And I understand that she doesn't want to force vaccination, but they're going to do all they can to, if it's not a mask mandate and you're vaccinated, then you have to be vaccinated to be inside. I hope that's what it is. But that, for the Democratic side, but what can we say at this point?
What can we say? Honestly, that's the thing is how do we interpret this at this point? Because while reports are saying that the rates are going down, I also know the data is getting bad. The data is bad. Mm-hmm. Death is probably our most accurate data at this point, and even that is not being reported at the same levels as previous. There's bipartisanship here. Right.
Yes.
I think the bipartisanship that the other side of this equation is that, well, they've been trying to force us to just live life as normal in hopes of not damaging the economy. And we see this week and last week, people reporting that the economy is doing great despite COVID. And I'm like, how do you finish that sentence when people are not doing great in spite of COVID?
Exactly. I mean, this is... the commentary, if you travel around the world, or if you watch foreign, it's very easy. You can do it on YouTube nowadays, watch news in other countries, even turn on the BBC. The way that the rest of the world reports on this pandemic is so different. And of course, response to this pandemic than how we do. And the fundamental difference is we are a country that is ruled by capitalism. It's not that capitalism doesn't exist in the EU, but we are ruled at our roots by capitalism. Yeah. And so I think we interpret everything is through the lens of capitalism. I mean, I know this isn't a shocker, but the pandemic is, I think, the clearest, it's the clearest show of our capitalist roots. I think the thing that really is bizarre to me is the CDC. I don't understand why the Biden administration, even if they did this, decided not to report on deaths, why are they publicizing it? That's what's weird to me, because no one with half a brain is like, why? That's like saying we're no longer going to report, hurricanes the way that the Trump administration was cutting the EPA budget. Why would you do that? It's not for budgetary reasons. Yeah, it's truly bizarre.
I think it really feels like, if I were to be honest with you, it feels like manufacturing consent. I think they have. I agree with you. I think they've given up on the people who refuse to get vaccinated. But here's the thing. The hardening of the American people around their refusal to get vaccinated is not just a natural outgrowth of a person sitting at home. It's the natural outgrowth of constant propaganda. It's a natural outgrowth of listening to Fox News, listening to Tucker Carlson, listening to Joe Rogan, quite frankly, listening to all of these outlets that all day, every day, over the entirety of the pandemic, they have been attacking the vaccine. And so for me, it's almost as if America, the structure, the institutions, did not put up a fight against this anti-vax, anti-mask movement. It just surrendered and say, well, hell, let's, if they die, they die.
Absolutely right. And it's bizarre because, of course, there's a correlation between a strong correlation between the anti-vax movement. And there are obviously some people on the edge of that are not conservative for other reasons. But the core of that movement is a reflection of the Trump base, is overlaps with the insurrectionist base. Of course, it's not all of it, but that is where the propaganda is coming from, and they want to grow that movement. So you'd think, okay, well, if the Democrats who are in power right now, don't want to fight for capitalist reasons, they can at least go after the propaganda in some ways or call it out. And, and I know we've done this before and I know it's being overplayed, but I just want to keep reiterating. Thank God for Neil Young, because it's not just that he said he was pulling from Spotify. It's that he framed it from capitalism and said, the workers of Spotify, if you are uncomfortable, you don't have to be there. Obviously it's hard to find work and he's acknowledging that, but he used the power of his capital against Spotify's capital, because Spotify is making a decision, we hope at least, based on capitalism. I say we hope because I hope that they're not really, trying to spread propaganda for some sort of right-wing, reason. But I think that they're making a decision based on capitalism. He's like, all right, well, two can play that game. And I think we organizers, and we do get it because, there are people organizing at Starbucks and at Amazon and all over the country in different workplaces. Right. But we have to also use our power through capitalism, because that's the only thing many of these people respond to. And so, it's really sad to see that the Democrats are not more concerned with propaganda, because they're going to have an electoral issue, in a few months. But we still have the power, because we shouldn't rely on these institutions and Joe Biden to solve our problems right now.
That's right. At this juncture, I think the government has made it clear that they abdicated all responsibility to the care of the American people. So we'd be foolish to continue to look at this government for help. I want to move on to as much as I have problems with Joe Biden in this moment, I have to play this next clip so people can clearly understand that there is nothing in this country quite like the threat of the Republican Party. And I don't even like the Democrats like that. So for me to say a sentence like that, you got to know what's coming. It's really, really effed up. Here's a clip out of South Florida, my stomping ground. And there is a campaign that already occurred in South Florida, where Republican operatives were going door to door, changing the voter affiliation of elderly people from Democrat to Republican, so that those people would have a problem voting when it was a time for them to vote. Let's take a listen to this clip.
Nicole, we do know that Miami-Dade prosecutors are now looking into some of the cases. The governor weighed in today. One of those seniors, all lifelong Democrats, her name's Maria. She lives in this place. Thanks to her, we get our very first look at least one of the people who were knocking on the doors. Maria took photos of the woman at her door last summer, said she was updating voter registrations. The ID had her name, worker number 56, and a QR code that connects to the Republican Party of Florida website. Maria's story matches the others we've collected.
Came to my door and they asked if I was interested in voting.
Armando, Ernesto, Juan.
And then sent me to the Republican Party.
That's Maria with the ID she had on the left, a Democrat since she registered in 1996, 25 years, until that visit and the new card she received last September on the right made her Republican.
Nosotros estamos de las noticias de Local 10.
This is the home address listed for that Republican Party of Florida's voter registration worker, Maria Barrick.
Yo no voy a salir, eso es mentira, okay?
After saying she wasn't coming out because it's a lie, someone inside made a phone call on speaker. The advice? Don't talk to them. But then Barrick's daughter gave us a name of an organizer to call.
She's the only person who got everybody involved in this situation, involved in thinking in this situation. She worked directly with the company. And my mom is not speaking with nobody without an attorney present.
While we trace that company and who's paying that bill, the Republican Party of Florida director on Friday emailed that its operation follows all laws and regulations. Florida's leading Republican, the governor, in Miami today, said a proposed elections integrity unit would investigate.
We're going to have a specified group of investigators and law enforcement that will go after those types of election shenanigans.
That is the local station down there in South Florida, and I just want to give them a shout out for that reporting. Nomiki, these people they're evil, and they have no regard for democracy at all. What are your thoughts?
I love how Governor DeSantis is like, we're going to create a special commission of people that I picked to oversee this and investigate it. And oh, by the way, while we were investigating it, we found voter fraud on the Democratic side, because that's how they're going to spin this. I mean, you're not going to see this on Fox News. All day long, they talk about how they found, one person who sent a mail-in ballot before they died, which was before the election. And like, that's voter fraud on the Democratic side. But then they're these kinds of Roger Stone tactics. I mean, this is classic Roy Cohn-esque politics. I mean, this is the dirty tricks that the Republican Party is known for. I don't know if they're breaking the law. They might have found some sort of loophole here.
That's
but,
right.
Actually, it seems like they might be breaking the law, because you're not allowed to mislead people. That's a contract.
That's right.
I mean, that's essentially,
right. You're
signing that. So
exactly.
I am curious how they're going to be able to go through those voter rolls and figure this out. And I also am wondering, obviously it's always very close in Florida, especially Southern Florida, but I'm curious if, and I know this is not the easiest thing to say, but I'm wondering if the numbers of registrations have gone down for Republicans because of COVID, if there have been more deaths on the Republican side because of their politics of refusing to wear masks. And, Florida's been a lawless state pretty much since the beginning of the pandemic. So
that's right. That's right.
It's always close. So I imagine it has in some way.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about it. There was a study that showed that there's a statistically significant difference between you dying in this pandemic if you are a Republican or a Democrat. I want to say a statistically significant difference, which means there's a measurable outcome based in scientific data that if you are a supporter and what it is, Nomi, is that they have this hermetically sealed propaganda bubble over there. And I never really thought that bubble would be so tight that they would die. They would be willing to die for their propaganda. And so I think your theory might be right. Maybe they have wiped themselves out so much in South Florida as it pertains to COVID-19 and the elderly population of Republicans that they have to go door to door. And then I would go one step further. I don't even think they would care. I think that they would do this anyway, because they don't see democracy as an actual institution that's to be respected. They see democracy as something that needs to be overthrown.
And you know what? I for any good Democrats who are watching this, who are involved in any campaigns, I'm not even leaning on the Democratic Party or the DCCC or any big consultants anymore. I urge you to use footage like this in your campaign ads. If you're running against a Republican, hell, if you're running against a centrist, use this type of footage and say, this is what we're up against. Use the photo of the insurrectionists, because the RNC has officially attached themselves to them now. So now it's your opportunity to use that, because let me tell you, Mitch McConnell's calling it out. There are a lot of Republicans in this country. I would say it's hard to say that, but most Republicans in this country are not insurrectionist types. I mean, I have family members like that. I think that's partly how Joe Biden won, is with folks who just couldn't stay on there were folks who were willing to vote for Trump because they wanted the tax benefits. And then there are folks who just said, it's too much. It's too much. I'm going to be fine otherwise. Joe Biden's not, too far left, so it's not too much for me to do. So use this footage when you run, because I really think that if we do keep any seats, it is because the Republican Party is going so far. It has nothing to do with the Democratic Party.
Absolutely. It's not because Democrats are doing anything necessarily good. I have a long laundry list of that, and we'll be talking about that with Rebecca Azor during Like It or Not. And coming up here in a few minutes, we'll be talking with Georgia Ford about the ongoing protests and the police murder of Amir Locke in Minnesota. We'll be discussing that. I want to shift one more gear before we get to those stories, Nomi, and take you to Steve Bannon. I know that you watch and you analyze his work a lot, and I think think it's meaningful. Steve Bannon, of course, is a former senior advisor to Donald Trump, and quite frankly, one of the leading voices in this global right-wing fascist movement. He had a meltdown. This is a couple days old, but I wanted to share with you. He had a meltdown in response to Vice President Mike Pence. When Mike Pence finally said something good, right? A broken clock, right, twice a day. He finally admitted that what Donald Trump was doing was wrong. Too little, too late, if you ask me. But it really sent Steve Bannon into a tizzy, because I want people to be sure there is a concerted effort. There is an actual plan. They are not making mistakes. They are executing an agenda, and that agenda has been orchestrated by people like Steve Bannon. I'm going to show two clips. The first is of Mike Pence as he casually firmly dismisses Donald Trump. And then I want to play the second part, which is Steve Bannon melting down because Republicans are supposed to work in lockstep together. Let's run those clips.
President Trump said I had the right to overturn the election. But President Trump is wrong. I had no right to overturn the election. The presidency belongs to the American people and the American people alone. And frankly, there is no idea more un-American than the notion that any one person could choose the American president. Under the Constitution, I had no right to change the outcome of our election. And Kamala Harris will have no right to overturn the election when we beat them in 2024.
Pence, you're going to carry this thing eventually to your grave, okay? Because it is a mark of shame, and you are a stone-cold coward. A stone-cold coward. Boris Epstein. We're going to start with numbers and analysis, and then this thing broke this afternoon. My head's blown up, so Boris, you got to help me out here, brother. I can't take Pence. And I can't take Pence and Mark Short and all these coke guys up there ratting out Trump up on Capitol Hill right now.
Now, just for extra credit, I want everyone in the audience to Google Boris Epstein and Google how close he is to your local news broadcast. How many times he's been on your local news broadcast as if he's a normal news commentator. He's almost on every local news station because of how their situation is set up, right? But here he is with Steve Bannon talking about overthrowing the damn government. Nomiki.
Oh, man. So I know Boris. This is a painful one here. Boris does not have an actual value in his body. I can say that. And I'm going to start saying this stuff because, over the years being in media, as you know, Ben, you get to know these people if you are debating them or if you've been in campaigns like I have. It's professional to not talk about them, but I'm going to talk about them because I think that a personality, you understand what their motivations are and what's really happening. And I don't think a lot of folks understand. I really don't. These people are full of crap. They have no values. This is a game to them. He used to walk into Fox News and say whatever it was to get attention. He would yell at the makeup artist. He was he was basically pushed off of Fox News because of that. He was pushed and he rewarded with his actions on the campaign, the Trump inaugural committee in 2016. But then he couldn't even maintain that because his personality was so aggressive that nobody wanted to work with him. So then he was pushed to local. But this is important because the cockroaches will always find a place to go. And local news, I mean, he works with the Sinclair Media Group, I believe, or did work with them at least. And he is on, I was visiting my parents in Arizona and there's Boris on TV delivering the news. I'm like, Boris Epstein, the lobbyist he's being investigated for Russian interference. I mean, like, what? This guy should not be on a local channel. He's an operative. Right. It is like if Steve Bannon had a local news channel and was delivering you the local news and no one was saying anything out loud, which is why I'm saying this because you do have to kind of explain who these people are in these universes. Sure. I don't know where the investigation is now, but he was very much part of the Russia investigation, as was Bannon, of course, who was, let's remind folks, arrested on his yacht, Mr. Man of the People. I don't know. I mean, this is dangerous stuff. And
I wanted to make this segment about this conversation really about Mike Pence and Steve Bannon, but I think it is more important. No, not at all. I think it is literally more important for people to understand that last part that you just said. And Dwayne, if you don't mind backing up the B-roll to show Steve Bannon next to Boris, because I really think anyone who's listening to us, if you just search your local news station, if you call them and ask them or email them and ask them, you are absolutely going to find out that the man who is standing next to Steve Bannon in this clip has been feeding you analysis in your local news as if he's an unbiased reporter. I think that's more important than Steve Bannon at this juncture, at least in this particular conversation.
And this is how Steve Bannon works, right? And this is how this entire movement works. They understand that they don't have the people and they have to feed propaganda wherever they can, and hook them in. You know, the old organizing philosophy, meet people where they are. And then you can hopefully in communication philosophy, bring them to your side a little bit more. And so what the far right has done, what Bannon has done, is he understands that he has to look at all these different demographics around the country. They don't win votes by elections by large margins unless it's completely gerrymandered. You know, they look at Florida and say, okay, well, if we can convince a few Democrats to vote Republican, you know, maybe we'll win, Florida again. Or if we can just scrape a little bit of the millennials off of the Democratic rolls, then that's enough. Or if we can get Boris Epstein in every single home in America because Sinclair is conservative, we may be able to, trick people into voting Republican again and not trusting the Democrats. And it's like death by 1,000 cuts. But it's not 1,000 cuts. It's actually getting a lot bigger. And it's horrifying. Absolutely.
Nomi, thank you. It's always great. I love these Solidarity Wednesdays. I'm going to be with you later on today. What do you have going on and what should the people know that you have going on that they should support?
Great. Matriarch, I think last time I was on, we were getting ready for Matriarch's training, which was last Saturday. And Matriarch is, of course, an organization that supports working class women running for office at all levels. We are accepting nominations for endorsements for ongoing programs. So if you are a working class woman that's thinking of running or are running for office, or you know someone, or you're working on a campaign of one, we urge you to go to matriarchpac.com, find someone from your community to nominate you for endorsement. The training was a 9-day training, 325 people signed up for this training. I really blew me away how many folks showed up. Great people like Carmen Yulín Cruz, Cynthia Nixon, Park Cannon spoke at this. It was extraordinary. Georgia, we have a lot more of these going on. We have 3 more trainings planned for the year. But when you're endorsed, you're part of the ongoing program because it's not enough to just get an endorsement and a check. Folks, because the Democratic Party is not doing its job in every single part of the country, we're trying to make up for that. Go run against a Proud Boy. That's what we're saying.
That's good.
The best people to run, women, working women.
I love it. Go run against them. Absolutely. Nomiki Konst, the Nomiki Show, Solidarity Wednesdays. I'll see you later on.
Thanks, man. I'll see you later.